Okay, are we started? Yes. Okay, we are going to have some fun today. I have so much in the papers. I was going to do what I did last time, where I had like a 3-hour video, because I was going to do a couple book reviews. I got a couple more books. I'm almost finished, but I'm not finished the books yet, and I got a lot of newspapers to cover. So right now, there's I put on my Facebook a reaction to Red Ice Radio with Henrik Palmgren and Elena Lanka, whatever her name is. They now got kicked off Facebook. So I posted. He made an excellent commentary about the environment today of censorship coming from the Marxists, who control pretty much all the media, all the banks, all the schools, and so my what I commented on Facebook, and that does give you an idea of sort of where I'm going with this video in terms of when I do my newspaper reviews. What we're looking for is the Marxist onslaught, and this is the kingdom of Satan working in the world. Attention, history buffs. Our God is a God of vengeance. Jesus, ruling and reigning from heaven, saw to it that Jerusalem and the temple were destroyed for rejecting his rule on earth. Hitler did his best to rid Europe of evil Marxists. Unfortunately, to echo General Patton, the British and American idiots fought on the wrong side. And now the evil Marxists have cultivated their plans to destroy the Western world. I fear this current trend of banning free speech will lead to a backlash that will make Hitler's efforts look like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. Salvation and glory and power belong to our God, for true and just are his judgments. He has condemned the great prostitute who corrupted the earth by her adulteries. He has avenged on her the blood of his servants. And so that's why I see what's going on in the world today in terms of the war against Marxists is very much the war against the kingdom of Satan, the synagogue of Satan, I'm calling it. All right, let me see here. Okay, so there's also one of the things also that Red Ice did. One of their Flashback Fridays, they covered this event with Sacha Baron Cohen, who, a.k.a. Barat, who got an award from ADL, some kind of, I don't know what they call it, a Freedom Award or something, or the award for, I guess, for hating the Christian culture and white people. Maybe that's more accurately what it is. Anyways, I see they had shut off the comments. The comments were insanely that this was a channel. The Guardian covered this, and I don't know this channel. It's called New York. Anyways, I noticed the comments. Almost 100% were onto this guy, that he's moaning, complaining about the terrible alt-right, when in the meantime all he does is mock Christian values and traditional family, and I mean, he's an out-and-out Marxist. And I had made a similar comment that is, of course, now missing from from the YouTube comment section on this video, because they turned off their comments. This Guardian News, as right as the Guardian News, they put this up. They put it up in sections. I think they have the whole thing up also. This is a video called "They Would Have Let Hitler Buy Ads." Sacha Baron Cohen's scathing attack on Facebook. And so my understanding of Hitler was he was on the right side of the issue, and he should have been free to buy ads as far as I'm concerned. And of course I have I don't have the understanding of who Hitler was that we were indoctrinated with as kids growing up in school. I believe my research has led me to a much more accurate view of who Hitler was. And I had said on this Guardian News comment, I had said that I have always had Jewish friends, but when I see guys like Barat getting applauded by the ADL, then I can only think about the backlash that's going to come. It's not like World War II, where the Americans and the British and so much of the West were hoodwinked into fighting on the wrong side. I think that people are smarter now. They're not going to be able to get away with. And I think this is what the Bible refers to as the day of Jacob's trouble. And I had forgot to mention. I can remember to bring that in. Maybe that's what I should call this video, the day of Jacob's trouble, because God is not going to allow this continuation of the evil Marxists. Jesus will eventually step in from heaven with some kind of intervention, like he did in 70 AD. Only it sounds like to me this is going to be much more extreme situation where you're not going to have the Americans and the British on your side anymore. There's just too many people that are onto the synagogue of Satan, Marxist agenda, and so let me just go into that. Give you an example of Marxist agenda in just even the local. They got this local paper here. It's mostly infomercials, and I know that the headline. This is the front page, right? So this is the front page, Bucks County Herald. This is your drag queen parade here, and before that, the one before this had like a gay pride parade, and this is the front page of a local paper. So they're normalizing. They're just normalizing what many of us have considered sinful lifestyles and behavior. I had explained to somebody last night in a conversation about this who's on the other side, who's more or less on the Marxist side of things, and but I explained that the issue with, say, having a separate society, you would separate people according to, do you think that, are you okay with LGBTQT, whatever, or are you against it? And people can be separated just simply on that basis of, okay, yes, we're against it, not because we just have a preference. To me, this is a creation issue, that God created male and female, and that the perversions of these things is a result of the fall of man. And so you have two different worldviews. You have those of us who believe that there's a fall of man, that there's a sinful nature, the original sin and so forth, and those who don't. And I don't think those two societies are compatible, and they could be peacefully separated, and they can coexist peacefully if they are separated. Now the problem is, most of the people on the other side are not going to allow. They just won't allow others the freedom of association, the freedom to have the kind of the kind of society they want. And the funny thing is, you got the United Nations, and part of their mission statement is to assure that people have the freedom to determine their own destiny. And so we know that that's not what United Nations is really all about. They are very much part of this melting the whole world into one Marxist paradigm. And we've seen in the past the people who wouldn't just fall in line were executed to the tunes of tens of millions. And those are the peace-loving. Those are the peace-loving, tolerant, diversity-loving crowd that does the mass murdering. So there's less and less people being fooled by this. Here's another example. Okay, there's a little local bookstore in Doylestown, Lahaska, and it's all mostly, it's all kinds of liberal gobbledygook. One of the books for children here, the Gay BC book, it's LGBT for for toddlers, and so if you're somebody like myself who believes that that's not the appropriate way to construct a civilization, then what are you going to do? Are you going to allow us to have our own society, or are you going to kill us? Here, Buck's Faith Community hosts end gun violence. Because that's one of the things. One of their favorite things are like gun violence and climate change. And I want to talk about both of those things. I'll start with gun violence. The Second Amendment was established to assure that the population had enough firepower to overthrow the government. So it's not about you having a AK-47 to protect your home, although that's covered in there. It's really about how to assure that the people are able to defend themselves against the government, which now, the centralized Department of Defense has enormous firepower compared to all the gun owners in America. I think that's the appropriate way of applying the Second Amendment is to disperse the Department of Defense, decentralize it, and have all the weaponry and intelligence and so forth should be dispersed and deployed, decentralized, and each municipality or county or so forth should be running their own Department of Defense. That's the appropriate way to do the Second Amendment. And until it's done like that, then it's not really all that valuable. That's all there is to it. It's like it's a moot point at this point. The purpose has been defeated unless you do what I just said. Climate change. I talked about climate change last time. I was pointing out the fact that it's not. They throw in this thing about carbon because that sounds technical. It's a very scientifical, and the average person just thinks, oh wow, there's a carbon. That's one of those scientifical things. And it really is nonsense. It's a mechanical process. The light, the photon comes in from the sun. It heats up the atmosphere, and the idea of the greenhouse gas is supposed to be it's supposedly pinning the heated atmosphere under I don't know under the gases or something like that. You see, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, especially if you're going to talk about carbon as being one of the contributors, it's 335 parts per million. You're talking about a screen that will let through anything and everything, and including hot air. I mean, it's just ridiculous. The whole premise is nonsensical. And think about this: the idea in a real greenhouse. Okay, you have solid glass that's trapping the hot air in. The photon comes in, heats the air, goes back out again, and the air is trapped in this and be in the class, and it really has nowhere to go. It's not like the Earth, which is the atmosphere, which is like a convertible spaceship, racing through space. That's just a little bit above absolute zero. The theory of the greenhouse gas means that most 90, probably 98%, really, maybe even more of that is water vapor. That is cloud cover. And so what happens if you're out on a partly cloudy day, partly sunny, partly cloudy? You're in the sun, it's warm, cloud comes over, and it gets chilly because there's less light waves coming in. So it's the opposite of a greenhouse gas. If you want to call it anything, it's a global cooling device because it blocks the photons from heating up the air under the cloud. So the whole thing is bogus. Anybody who's capable of free thought, if you're able to think for yourself, then that this is a hocus pocus. It's just a way of trying to control everybody. That's just a control mechanism. And they're hoping that enough people are stupid so that they'll buy into it. But not everybody is that stupid. I don't think there's that many stupid people out there, really. I mean, hopefully that's the case. I thought this was really weird. Okay, here's one. Child care still stirs up resistance. In other words, people are still resisting giving their children over to the government. That's really what this is saying. Most Americans say it's not ideal for a child to be raised by two working parents. Yet in 2/3 of American families, both parents work. So the idea is you start encouraging one working parent family. In fact, there was a Berkeley University lecture by a liberal female economist who pointed out that two working parents actually have less money at the end of the month. So you might as well just keep one at home. The disconnect between ideas and reality helps explain why the United States has been so resistant to universal public child care. Even as child care is setting up to be an issue in the presidential campaign, a more basic question has recently resurfaced: whether mothers should work in the first place. And you're right, and they shouldn't. But of course, you think she's going to... In many ways, it has already been settled. 93% of fathers and 72% of mothers with children at home are in the labor force. It helps the economy when women work. Really, does it? I don't know how where did they come up with that? I don't think so. That economist just told us that you end up with less money in your household if you got two parents working. So I don't believe that statement. They just throw these things in here. It helps the economy. It's like diversity is our strength when it's actually our weakness, 40% of women are the family's breadwinners. Okay, when women are economical, beneficial for the families too. 40% of women are their family's breadwinners. Okay, so that means there's a lot of single, because this is not really talking about married women at that point. You're talking about single parent families. Some form of early childhood care and learning is part of the campaign platform of most Democratic presidential candidates. President Trump has not supported universal child care, but has bolstered existing child care policies, including approving a record increase to the Child Care and Development Fund for low-income families and a child tax credit increase. So, even Trump is, everybody's a Marxist. It's just that, Trump is probably only 50% Marxist, where the Democrats are 100% Marxist. Yet there has also been a revived discussion over whether mothers should outsource child care at all. And I agree with them. And I think that I don't have the rest of this article, but I don't know where the rest of the article was going with. But you can tell. It's New York Times, I believe. One of those Times papers is all the same. They're all New York Times. It's the most famous Marxist, yeah, Marxist newspaper in the world. It's you can trust the New York Times to bring you the Marxist agenda. So my idea is you shouldn't have public schools in the first place. That's all right. Now this was interesting. They're attacking this guy. I didn't go online to hear his music. It's probably pretty good because I like Schlager. So clad in lederhosen with a hint of populism. Okay. So and there's his fans. There's the guy. Let's see what his name is here. It's Gablier. That's his name. Okay. Andres Gabalier's critics say his songs carry right-wing messages. Oh, well, I think that he's probably doing that on purpose, And, because he's probably interested in preserving the traditional culture. And that's basically what this is at. They're bemoaning the fact that somebody's actually interested in the survival of the white race and European tradition and so forth. We should be afraid of this guy. And we should be afraid of his fans. They wear lederhosen and dirndl dresses. Okay, what's next? Okay. All right, here we go. This is also New York Times. They did this article. They're warning moms of white teen boys. Do not let your children on the internet. We want to control them. They belong to us. The Marxists, the Marxist control freaks want to destroy your white boys. Why are you allowing them to hear alternative opinions? Raising teenagers can be terrifying. Our squishy little babies become awkward, hormoned creatures who question our authority at every turn. I accepted that. What I didn't predict was that my son's adolescence would include being drawn to the kind of online content that right-wing extremists use to recruit so many young men. An early red flag. I watched one of my kids scroll through Instagram and double-click on an image, lighting up a heart that signifies a like. Hold on a minute, I said, snatching his phone. Was that Hitler? The meme showed a man in contemporary clothing tipping off the Nazi leader to the invasion of Normandy. My son said he hadn't even read it. He just assumed the time traveler was trying to kill Hitler, not help him. He was shocked and embarrassed when I pointed out the actual message, that it would have been better if the Holocaust had continued. Well, that's not really the message. In fact, Hitler wasn't actually carrying out a Holocaust. That's false history. If you look into what really happened there, why do you think General Patton, when he went over there after he learned what was going on, said, hey, we're fighting on the wrong side of the war? Adolf Hitler's objective was to cleanse Europe of the Marxists that were out to destroy. Remember, they just destroyed Russia, killing some 60 million people. And that they had their eyes on Europe to do the same thing. He went out to stop him. They turned it into a propaganda campaign to make it look like he was the bad guy, and he wasn't. All right. Participating in the alt-right community online offers the seductive feeling of being part of a brotherhood, which in turn validates their manhood, Dr. Katz says. It also seems to me, as a mom, that these groups prey upon the natural awkwardness of adolescence. Many kids feel out of place, frustrated, and misunderstood, and are vulnerable to the idea that someone else is responsible for their discontent. when they're white and male, they've spoon-fed a list of scapegoats, people of color, feminists, immigrants, LGBTQ people. If they really embrace this, it's not hard to convince them that there's a white genocide happening and that these people and the leftists who represent their interests are to blame. Well, I think that's pretty accurate. I don't know if it's not so much it's the people of color and the feminists and the immigrants and the LGBT people that are being used by the actual people that are conducting the war on whites. That's not, they're really not going after those groups. Those are the groups that the people who are actually in charge, the synagogue of Satan, wants them to be fighting. They don't share, often they don't share the same values as some of the other people, but they're not the primary they're not the primary target. The alt-right, the primary target of the alt-right is the synagogue of Satan. According to John Duffy, author of Parenting the New Teen in the Age of Anxiety, one thing to keep an eye on is YouTube. Kids who watch hours of other kids playing video games, a popular pastime, can be exposed to dozens of ads in a sitting. They might hear about the border, or a crooked Hillary, or a conspiracy theory on how the left works. Dr. Duffy said many of these spots are created and promoted by organizations like Prager University, which Dr. Duffy notes is not an accredited university, but a propaganda machine that introduces viewers to extremist views via video. And YouTube's recommendation algorithm offers videos that become more and more extreme as viewers watch them. Teens who have no idea how to tell which sources are reputable can be led by YouTube to threads full of racism and conspiracy theories. On forums like 4chan, Google may lead them to white nationalists. Outlets like the Daily Stormer, where hate and harassment are normalized. Like the Antifa, you mean? That's where hate and violence and harassment are normalized. Boy, I saw this one video on Red Ice. It was, I think it was Lana's channel. This British girl has, I think she was a British girl. Maybe no, it was an American. That's right. Anyway, she, although the same thing happens to British people, she was a farmer's market. She had a farmer's market stand, and somebody found out that she had posted favorably on some alt-right content, and they got the Antifa to harass her, and try to prevent people from buying from her and all this nonsense. And so, really, and then there was another scene on that video. I don't know if I want to look. Let me try to look it up now. I could try to look it up now, but there was another scene on that video where there was a group of older folks like myself, I suppose, who were meeting about, they were concerned about what's going on with the Marxist takeover of the country and so forth, and the 16 hoodlums, Antifa hoodlums, come rushing into the restaurant, knocking things over, attacking people, and so forth, and then all run out again. And I think there was the approval of the mayor. That's what they said. That the mayor of the town at the time was giving them approval. This is because the Antifa are here it is. Antifa harass farmers. and there's a scene on there where these kids, this is some other group related kind of thing where the Antifa comes in and beats up a bunch of old people. And as far as I know, they just, they get away with it. They get a free pass. The government is controlled by Marxists, and so you're allowed to be violent if you're a Marxist. So this is Radio 314 on Red Ice. Antifa harass farmers. Boy, I couldn't believe that. It really got me steaming to see that. That people can do that. Geez. Okay. Anyway. Okay. Parents also need to encourage our sons to think critically about the things they're hearing online. One term I've debunked in this way for my kids is snowflake, an insult embraced by moderate conservatives and the alt-right alike. It is used to dismiss people who complain about racism, sexism, and homophobia as laughably delicate. When one of my kids used it, I smiled and, in a conspiratorial tone, asked him to think about this. Who is more a delicate snowflake? The person who wants people to stop racial slurs or mocking of gay people, or the person who is upset and offended by the use of the phrase "Happy Holidays"? A common talking point during the Fox News infamous war on Christmas segment. Well, the thing is, that's not apples and apples. So you're not okay. This guy is deceiving his kids because that's not apples and apples. The people who are concerned, say, about the replacement of Happy Holidays, the replacement of Merry Christmas with Happy Holidays, are not saying somebody said Happy Holidays, therefore let's report them to the ADL and let's get them fired from their job and let's ruin their life. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about people who, if they hear something they don't like, they get their feelings hurt, and they go to the ADL or one of these, and they want the person to have their life ruined, or they send in 16 thugs to go beat them up. That's what we're talking about. That's the snowflakes we're talking about. Not. See, the guy's lying to his children, and you shouldn't be doing that. Dr. Cat suggested to counteract the seductiveness of that appeal from the right, we need to offer them a better definition of strength. That true strength resides in respecting and lifting up others, not seeking to dominate them. And that's all that the Marxists do, is they seek to dominate them. Why do you think? Why are they kicking them off? This is one of the excellent points that Hendrik Palmer made. If they had the truth, then they wouldn't have to worry about lies. If people on the alt-right were the liars, then they wouldn't have to worry about it, because the lies wouldn't stand up to the truth. It looks like it's the other way around. They don't have an argument. They got to shut them down. They got to dominate them. Here's another Marxist. Why lean in? It's time for men to lean out. Okay, it's a feminist Marxist thing. Flawed male value system is being sold back to women. The parents were giving their children virtue names today, as the Puritans used to do. Nobody would choose charity or grace or patience. Instead, half of all baby girls born in America would be named empowerment and assertiveness, which is about right. Maybe even some other choice words. Women who love too much, women who think too much, women who worry too much, women who do too much. Rarely do we stop and consider that many of life's problems might be better explained by the alternative titles: men who love too little, think too little, worry too little, or do too little. Now, I'm not totally against some of the sentiments, like, for instance, there is a legitimate point to saying that, okay, a lot of the feminists, what they do is they really pick up some of the worst traits of men and think that that's how you become equal. It's interesting. There's a study that like a personality study between men and women that goes around in Christian circles, and one of the things is sex is number one most important thing for men, and it's number 3 for women. Wait a minute. It's number 6 for women. That's right. It's number 1 for men and number 6 for women. That's right. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's because the fall of man. Things are all kind of, things are messed up. They're not the way they should be. And so my thing, this is, I'm thinking in a more, in a world that hadn't fallen, sex would be probably number 3 for both the men and the women. See, that's how I'm thinking about it. But anyway, okay. I don't know where to go next. Let's see here. This is also the local newspaper, the Bucks County Herald. There was somebody wrote a couple letters in here. Shield bill is meant to protect our democracy. I didn't know we have a democracy. I didn't know that. I thought that we were ruled over by a shadow government. That's what I thought. There was once a dream. It was called America. So, I called Congressman Fitzpatrick's office to inquire how he voted on Shield bill, which would help protect our elections from interference by foreign entities. His staff politely told me she did not know. His staffers told me she did not know. I think she must have known. I think she was embarrassed to relate that he voted no. Republican members of the Congress will only stand up for the Constitution and the rule of law after they decide not to run in the next election. Charlie Dent, the former Republican congressman, is but one example. This is a strong argument for term limits. But this, I think, is laughable. First of all, I don't trust any election in America because it's all done in private. And even if you say, oh, well, you can count the vote. Well, okay, so let's suppose I get on the team that counts the votes. And it's done. People go in this private booth and they have this electronic voting machine. The votes can be changed before the counters even get to it. But the whole thing is, the only voting I would ever trust is public voting. And that's where you don't use machines, you don't go under a curtain. That's cowardice. That's one of the ways that they promote a nation of cowards. What they should do, like where I go to vote, they should have, you got the gymnasium, you got a giant blackboard, and you just write on the wall. You got the names of the candidates, and you sign your name under the one you're voting for. And everybody can see it, so there's as many voters as there are vote counters, and vice versa. There's as many vote counters as there are voters. And everything's public, and they can't pull the wool over your eyes. That's why I don't trust any elections in America. I just don't trust them. The system is not to be trusted as far as I'm concerned, unless we switch over to public voting. And if you're afraid to vote publicly because you'll be intimidated, well, then you're the kind of person we don't want voting, because we don't need cowards. Cowards, according to Jesus, will be cast in the lake of fire. So, we don't need a nation of cowards. And so that's the way it has to be, you have to go forward voting in public. Okay. There was once a dream, it was called America. This is a guy, he was Michael Grothman in Newtown. Okay, he wrote this letter in the newspaper. Back in the year 2000, there was a Hollywood blockbuster movie, Gladiator. One of the important themes, so let me turn it down a little bit. Okay. Of the film was political. Overheard numerous times during the film is the line, "There was once a dream that was Rome." Fast forward to the upside down world of today's America. Just like Maximus in the movie, honorable men like West Point graduate and Vietnam veteran William B. Taylor and Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, a Purple Heart winning veteran of the Iraq War, are vilified by their commander-in-chief as never Trumpers and scum. Well, I mean, you should question the wars you go to. Why were they fighting in Iraq? Nobody should be fighting in Iraq, you know what I mean? These ugly presidential bully pulpit pronouncements are then echoed by CNN and Fox News. Our country hasn't seen public bullying like this since the days of Joe McCarthy in the 1950s. It must stop before. But Joe McCarthy was a good guy. He was, if we had followed, if we followed in his trajectory and his steps, we might not be so much of a Marxist. We might not have been taken over by the Marxists. So, over my life, I have been lucky to be able to travel throughout the world. My wife and I have always made a point to visit an American cemetery when we travel overseas. When we stood viewing the graves of our valiant soldiers in American Cemetery in Luxembourg City last summer, we couldn't hold back our tears at the how our present-day commander is destroying the dream that was America. Well, the thing is, the dream that is America is a Marxist, utopian thing, and to me, the proper way to go about freedom is to go back before we had a United States, where people were had the freedom to establish their own separate nation states and so forth, and based on their particular values. And we need to go back to that. And I'm always talking about someday I'm going to start a website where people can go on to the website. It's going to be kind of like one of these personality tests, only it's going to be regarding your likes and dislikes for civilization, government, and so forth. And we could have a map and all this, and it would eventually show where the concentrations of people that want what. And then the job of the concerned citizens of the world should be to facilitate that logistics of letting those nation states form. Very similar to, United States was one of the first, maybe the first nation where people sat down and decided what it was going to be like beforehand. Unfortunately, the people that were deciding that were like Synagogue of Satan humanists that decided, we're going to have this, this humanist nation that's going to trivialize people's religions by making all religions have to bend the knee to the humanists' Freemasonic agenda. But we can't tell people this because most of the people at the time were Christians and they got to pay for the damn thing. And so we'll just tell them they got freedom of religion. And so that was the hoax. And now you see what we got. We got people who are being persecuted because they're trying to stand up for righteousness. And that's what we ended up with. I started this video talking about all the banning on the social media, the way the Marxists who own the social media and own the world governments and the banks and the media and the schools and everything else are taking away people's ability to discuss the fact that they're being manipulated, exploited, and so forth. And what happens, you take away their voice, and then there's going to be people who, you're pushed to the brink, and then people are going to snap. Okay, 2 days after shooting your synagogue in Germany, and that's what happens. It's not like shouldn't be unexpected. You know what I mean? Nobody should not expect that to happen. I mean, if you read the Bible, Jesus was a very practical kind of guy. He would expect this too. Say, okay, well, you're going to smother people and take away their voice, and not even allow them to express the fact that they're being silenced and they're being mistreated. The kinds of things that they're doing, like in Europe with the Islamic invasions, the invasion of population replacement. It seems to me that the motivation between the war on whites, one thing is, okay, first of all, Christians and European white people, for instance, are the most likely to resist global domination by this group, Synagogue of Satan. And so they got to think of every way, they're going to do every way possible to try to destroy them, so, whatever it takes, propaganda, trying to erase the white race. There's even things like denying that the whites have a history. There's this thing as white history. And that's one of the things you gotta watch Henrik Palmgren on Red Ice, where he talks about this. And I connected it to my Facebook page. They got kicked off of Facebook, and Henrik has clips of a few people on the other side that are actually saying, hey, this is getting ridiculous, that the way the Europeans and whites are being treated, and then to deny that they even have they're even allowed to talk about it, is even some of the people on the other side are saying, this is not going to end well. It's not going to end well. It's like I said, it's what the Bible describes as the day of Jacob's trouble is going to be, because it's not like in the the early 1900s and World War I and World War II. They're slowly losing their ability to bedazzle and brainwash people into just taking their side automatically. They had World War I and World War II were about getting Christians and Europeans to kill one another, so that the Synagogue of Satan come pick up the pieces and consolidate power. And I'm not interested in going to war to kill anybody, really. But certainly in a defensive, I'm talking about other than defense. The Department of Defense doesn't really do defense. It's really just the bullying, the thug branch for the New World Order around the world. Why do we have so many military bases around the world? That this is really creepy. So we're going to see what happens. I don't think they're going to get away with trying to talk Christians and Europeans and whites to kill one another again in some kind of massive war. I don't think that can happen. Although the Antifa there's a lot of white Antifa, and they're anxious to kill white people. So I don't know what their numbers are. I don't know how you break this down. What percentage of Americans are still under the spell of the Synagogue of Satan, to the point where they would go, like they did in World War I, World War II, and go and kill their fellow Christians and fellow whites. Are there enough of them left? I'm beginning to think that there's not going to be enough. They're not going. In fact, what's going to happen is going to backfire on the Synagogue of Satan. This is the day of Jacob's trouble. And I'm not for any kind of genocide of the Jews. That's not the point. But I am for whatever it takes to cast out the money changers. Like Jesus did the one time he became violent, was when he was casting. And I think that one of the things that Christians fail to make this connection between the synagogue of Satan when Jesus was alive and the one that still exists today, that is conducting these great democides, large mass murders of people in the name of some kind of war, scaring people with boogeymen and trying to, it's just so childish now when you look back on it. The whole. I remember once somebody had used to send around. They used to send around these stupid anti alt-right little posters, like World War II posters, like Uncle Sam getting ready to beat up Nazis and stuff, and some chick kicking a Nazi in the face or something. It's like that. We're not living in the 1940s anymore. People have realized, hey, we've been hoodwinked, we've been lied, cheated, exploited. And it's amazing how many people, and I think myself included, really started to connect dots when they thought they would get away with 9/11. That Larry Silverman and Michael Chertoff and there's a list of people that were working in conjunction with the Mossad to orchestrate the destruction of those buildings. I mean, think about this. Let me make sure I got his name right. Okay, let me see. Okay, you think about those buildings would not have come down. They would certainly not have pulverized on the way down. Even let's suppose, and there's no reason to suppose this, but let's suppose they would fall. They would fall in giant chunks. There would be such large pieces they wouldn't. But the fact that they were pulverized on the way down, and by the time they got to the ground, they were already pulverized concrete and steel. I mean, this is really bizarre. The only way that could have happened is if Larry Silverstein. That's it. Larry Silverstein conspiracy. Okay. The owner, Larry Silverstein, why would he have bought those buildings knowing that they were liability, knowing that the cost of the asbestos replacement was going to was going to be more expensive than the actual price of the buildings and so forth. He'd never recoup his money. Buys the buildings. Well, it's pretty obvious that he came out with I think like $3 billion maybe. But not that was the whole purpose of this thing. It wasn't like, let's buy the Twin Towers for the ultimate Jewish lightning experience. That was just a little bit of pocket change on the side. What they really wanted to do was use this to scare people into this whole wars against the Muslims and wars in the Middle East and so forth. And I'm no fan of Islam. I think nobody hates the Islamic religion more than I do. That's not my point. And I don't hate Muslims. I just hate the religion. I hate the fact that there's a religion whose sole purpose, according to the Quran, is to prevent you from believing in Jesus. I mean, believing in Jesus as your Savior. I mean, they say, oh, we believe in Jesus. He's a prophet. Well, if they do, how come his prophecies have all been contradicted by Muhammad? He's the whole thing is just so. But that's another story. And I used to do a lot of videos. I used to debate Muslims in public forums and so on. So Larry Silverstein has these buildings, you have to have somebody with access so they can come in and wire them up and whatever. I know they have new. There's new technologies and explosives. There was, I remember the 60 Minutes. I've mentioned this before. There was a 60 Minutes program where this scientist had gotten thrown in prison because he didn't want to work with the government because he didn't like where they were going with. He was one of these guys. They had developed an explosive that explodes into the material because normally, I mean, an explosive that bounces off the material. I mean, that's how the principle of a gun or a cannon. The dense material of the cannon barrel, the gun barrel, contains the explosion so that it seeks the low, the low pressure pushes the bullet. Well, this is some kind of explosive material that actually would explode into the gun or into the cannon, so to speak. It goes into material. And this guy was working on this. They threw him in jail. Some trumped up charges about, I don't know, he was a terrorist or something like this. It was really bizarre because actually, I don't know if anybody can find that on, if it's out there anywhere. I'm pretty sure it was a 60 Minutes, and they were interviewing this guy, and I'm almost positive he was Jewish, and that he somebody was advocating for him because normally, even back then, the network news like this was very controlled. They wouldn't normally go after and expose certain people. But anyway, this was in the works. This is the kind of I don't for a minute believe that Osama bin Laden was sneaking in every night with his can of thermite or whatever, painting the girder. So there was something more sophisticated happening there, and it involved the Mossad, the evidence. There's so much evidence towards. You got to read Christopher Boland's Solving 9/11. That really gets to the bottom of it. And so, knowing that there's such people out there that would do this and think, okay, would get away with this. Once you wake up to the fact, well, you're like, well, wait a minute. Now I'm not even going to, I'm not about to listen to anything they have to say. I am now going to question everything and find out what's going on. And I mean, this is what happened. You really gotta read up on General Patton, the guy. You feel so bad for him because he obviously he bought into the original World War II story that lock, stock, and barrel. He was such a great general. He went over there and he was just always victorious. And but when he was actually over in Europe and he started finding out, being actually right there in the midst of the people and so forth, and finding out what was going on, he realized, well, we fought on the wrong side of the war. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not, be careful if you're on the wrong side. Where are you getting your information? Are you getting your information from the synagogue of Satan, who owns and controls the New York Times, and all the major networks? Why would you trust Satan? I wouldn't trust Satan. I don't think it's a good idea to trust Satan. So, anyway, there you go. That's I'm going to be back in maybe a week or so, and I got some really good book reviews coming up. So, thanks for listening. If you actually, I don't know how shadow banned I am. If anybody gets to see my videos, I know we made, for instance, me and my friends made a music video called Now Think We All Are God by the Philadelphia Abington House Church. And if you don't type the whole thing in, you can never get to it because it was shadow banned right from the beginning. I'm one of these shadow banned people. Anything I have to do with is shadow banned. I don't know why I'm still on YouTube. I'm not sure what that's all about. But I mean, as far as I don't know why I've been kicked off. But I did pick up a few subscribers recently, I think I went from 147 to 150. I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm glad that happened. So I just doing this. I feel like I'm called of God to speak the truth in this theater, and so I'm doing it. I'm not going to back down and do what I would consider to be a coward. I don't want to. The truth is one of the things that Jesus, lived and died for. Is the truth, and it's not just the truth about certain friendly verses in the Bible. There's all the uncomfortable verses in the Bible that Jesus stood for. So, all right. Anyways, thanks for listening. Hope you can tune me in again in a couple weeks.